right before New Year's Eve. The newspaper, this is the BBC, published an investigative article about how the Georgian authorities used chemical weapons against protesters. Of course, for people who don't really believe, who don't really know, who know what chemical weapons are and how they're used. I remember my husband wrote about this some year. I don't even remember which one, was it? It was in New York. He was writing a major paper specifically about chemical weapons. And I don't remember if he defended it. Most likely he just left that topic alone. It's such a slippery subject, though. Interesting. I myself went to Moscow when I was taking that whole brick of his to someone, a dissertation on chemical weapons. I have to say, chemical weapons are of course inhumane when used against people. But unfortunately, no one thinks about that, and they are used all the time. Just because the press doesn't report it, doesn't talk about it, doesn't make noise about it, doesn't mean it's not being used. It's used not only in Georgia. It's just that Georgia happened to end up, let's say, on the tip of everyone's tongue. That's why people started talking about it. Some people in Georgia live peacefully and have absolutely no idea what's happening in the center of Tbilisi. Some people just don't need to know, and that's even those who live in Tbilisi. People have written to me they live in Tbilisi and everything is fine for them. They kind of don't take part in any of this. Somewhere people are striking, somewhere people are going places. In other words, the country lives in completely different categories. Some protest, while others live peacefully. Of course, it's better to live your life peacefully. Will chemical weapons be used after these protests? Yes, of course they will. But who would stop, my friends? But you think that if you speak out, if you expose someone, the authorities will definitely get scared. Well, how can you even think that? That the authorities will definitely get scared if you expose them. Do they get scared a lot? No, right? The authorities just don't care at all. They have a big system, and the system works like a flywheel. So here you are, a little person. You try like a matchstick, right? You get caught in that flywheel, yes, and it will chew you up. And there's no way you can achieve that so that there won't be, so that chemical weapons won't be used. We have a lot. I have a lot of videos on my channel about chemical laboratories. When was that even? People were talking about this a long time ago. It was probably around 2016, before all these wars, before all these hyped up topics. I talked about it simply because I know about chemical laboratories that are located both in Ukraine and in Georgia. And in Georgia, well, that's Abkhazia, right? That breeding ground where they were creating some kind of clones. It's interesting, of course, friends, both clones and weapons, because when you don't know about it, it seems interesting to you. But when you do know, you realize just how unsafe it is, even just talking about it. We're just discussing it with you, bringing up the topic. What's happening in Georgia today? Over a year ago, anti-government protests began on Rustaveli Avenue in Tbilisi. Thousands of people. They took to the streets, challenging the state apparatus, which was ready to go to extreme measures to hold on to power. At one point, the authorities used water cannons against the demonstrators. They used water cannons against the demonstrators. And immediately, accusations began to surface that some unknown substance had been added to the water, which caused burning sensations on the skin and in the eyes. Many protesters complained that the symptoms persisted for more than a month. The BBC team dedicated a full 12-month period to meticulously investigating and documenting the use of various harmful chemical agents against protesters on Rustaveli Avenue. This investigation. Of course, they confirmed the investigation. What can you do? If it happened, it happened. People understand that it happened. But what exactly are they protesting against? Tell me. I just can't understand what people are protesting against. Everyone has some kind of problems. There are things that are necessary. But here, this government is fighting for power and only holding on to itself. Well, whoever was put in place, those are the ones who remain. How can you say that this government is really fighting for power? They wanted Saakashvili, and now he's sitting in prison and has lost weight. No one really knows who's actually in prison there. Well, it's just not clear. It seems like it's Saakashvili, but at the same time, maybe it's not him. Yeah. Because Saakashvili, of course, is a smart guy, or at least seems like one. Well, he's smart, he's an educated guy, but there were some strange notes in his behavior. Like, sometimes he'd chew on his tie, or he'd come out in public with his pants on backwards, the zipper at the back on his butt, and nothing in the front. You see, these things, maybe he was being provoked so that he would look like a weirdo, yeah, an oddball. Or maybe he was being manipulated in some way too. After all, that's an influence on the brain. Influence on the brain, of course, will affect anyone. You can influence someone, especially if someone has a chip, some kind of chip, I don't know. At every workplace, let's say for presidents or just ordinary people, many people are implanted with chips like dogs. Yes, of course, just like dogs get chips implanted, which can be used to influence them. And many people even agree themselves when they're offered these chips. And they work. If someone does something wrong and needs to be influenced, the chip is activated, connected to a certain program, and the person starts acting out of the ordinary. Like, for example, when Saakashvili took his red tie, stuffed it in his mouth, and started chewing on it. Unusual, isn't it? Of course not. Should we say he's crazy? Friends, I wouldn't be so quick to jump to conclusions. Not with things like that. Because anyone can be made to do something. Remember Russia in the 1990s and early 2000s? Half of Russia. Well, not half of Russia, of course, friends. Now I'm exaggerating, yes. But a large percentage of strange people were walking the streets. People who had lost their memory. It turns out they were just being experimented on. Oligarchs were buying themselves military laboratories and testing things on ordinary people. Who? They would just grab the first person they saw on the street. Whoever was walking by, they'd snatch them, throw them into a car, erase their memory, do who knows what to them, abuse them, I don't even know. And then they'd dump them back on the street without their memory and monitor them. Of course, they were all chipped. They were tracked and watched to see how they would behave afterwards. So how did they behave? Interesting. They were chipped, they were monitored. So there must have been some kind of program to test certain human behaviors without memory. So chemical weapons, if they're being used, friend, they've always been used. I just listened to a broadcast about Artec. Come visit me on Pusti. There, I wrote about how I was at Artec and how they used it on us too. Back then, we knew they were adding something to our compote so we would behave well. The 60s, I'm the same age as the Eiffel Tower. The 60s, Artec experiments on children. Huh? There you go. Visit me on Boosty. And this particular video, it's not my video. It's just a documentary film. And I'm sharing my memories of Artec. How they align with this video. I can confirm much of what is discussed in the video. Happy New Year!